JT Shaver here with New Layer, and today I want to share a pair of 100 watt battery powered COB lights that might just be the best portable option out there. These are the Genaray PortaBright daylight and bicolor LEDs, and they are a much welcome addition to the battery-powered COB category. Other battery-powered options include the Nanlite Forza 60 with their battery grip, the Jinbei EFII 60, and the upcoming Godox ML60. I did full reviews on the Forza 60 and the EFII 60, so I'll have links in the description if you want to check those out after this. Let's take a look at all the features of the PortaBright lights, and then we'll look at the pros and cons of these ones versus the other options. I always start with the case, and the case that comes with these lights is really great. It's well padded, everything fits comfortably inside, and there's even a small pocket on the front for accessories. There's also two buckles on the outside if you really need to cinch things down tight if you're taking these lights for a rough ride. Now, let's jump into the main selling point of these lights, which are the power options. The first way to power these lights is with the included AC adapter, but the cable coming out of the AC adapter is only a few feet long, so unless you come up with a mounting solution, it's going to be dangling off the back of the light. It does use a 90-degree XLR locking plug, but I just never like having anything hanging off the back. Most importantly, these lights can be run on battery power. They use proprietary Genaray monobat lithium-ion batteries instead of something like Sony NPF-style batteries, so that has both pros and cons. The biggest upside to having the batteries that these lights have is that they're fully integrated into the design and style of the light. On the other hand, NPF batteries are more universal and almost everyone has a few spare sets lying around. The Genaray batteries have about a 73 watt-hour capacity and cost around $79. I found the pricing on these batteries to be pretty comparable with NPF batteries of the same capacity. So the biggest downside to proprietary batteries is that you can't use them with any other gear that you have. With the included battery on the Daylight PortaBright, you get about 45 minutes of runtime at 100% brightness. LED power is pretty linear, but some of the power from the batteries goes to the screen and the fan and other components. That means if you have this light set at 50%, you'll get a little less than 90 minutes of runtime, and at 25%, a little less than 180 minutes, and so on. With the bicolor version, the battery will last almost twice as long if you're using the far ends of the color temperature range. And that's just because only one set of LEDs will be on at a given time. The recharge time from empty to full is about 5 hours, so you'll have to look at your shooting style and do some calculations to see how many extra sets of batteries you might need. One other important thing to note is that you cannot charge the batteries while they're inserted into the lights. Battery chargers are included with these lights, but you have to take the battery out to charge them. It would have been really nice if you could run these on AC power and charge the battery at the same time. That way, if you're going from a light stand to handheld, you can keep the batteries topped off while you're working. Another deal breaker on many lights is excess fan noise. The fans on these lights fall somewhere in between the original SL series and the SL Mark II series of Godox lights. I'll play back-to-back clips of the Godox SL60W and some other lights, followed by the Genaray PortaBright light so you can hear the difference yourself. I did boost the volume of all these clips the same just to make it a little easier to hear. I measured the brightness and color accuracy of these lights with my Sekonic C800 using the bare bulbs from 1 meter and got the following results. Starting with the PortaBright Daylight, this light came in at 5,880 Kelvin, so 280 Kelvin higher than the listed 5,600 Kelvin color temperature. Any modifiers you use, including the stock reflector, will change the color accuracy of a light, so a 280 Kelvin difference is fine by me. I got a brightness of 2,610 lux, which is the equivalent to f4.5 at 1/50th of a second and ISO 100. This is a tiny bit higher than the Godox SL60W, but essentially the same from a practical standpoint. I got a CRI and TLCI of 95.3 and 98. The R13 and R15 values are great at 96.6 and 92.6, while the R9 value came in at 82.7, which is good but not great. These numbers are important for accurately rendering skin tones, and overall you should have no issues here. I got an SSI of 72 versus the D55 Daylight standard, which is in line with most daylight balanced LED lights. I also got a color correction number of 1.4 green, meaning this light has a magenta tint to it, but LEDs typically green up over time, and again, any modifier you use will change the tint as well. I always highly recommend setting a custom white balance in camera and using something like an X-Rite Passport to get perfect colors in post. For the PortaBright bicolor, I got 3265 Kelvin on the tungsten end and 6498 Kelvin on the daylight end. This is about as close to the advertised specs of 3200 to 6500 Kelvin as you can get. I got a brightness of 1190 lux on the tungsten end and 1820 lux on the daylight end. That's around 2/3 to 1 stop dimmer than the daylight version of this light. I measured a CRI and TLCI of 95.1 and 99 on the tungsten end, and 96.2 and 98 on the daylight end. The R9, R13, and R15 values on the PortaBright bicolor are as good or better than the daylight version. I got an SSI of 85 versus the tungsten standard and 73 versus the daylight standard. One interesting thing about the bicolor light is that the tint is almost exactly neutral. All that said, you should have no significant issues using either of these lights independently or in conjunction with each other. If you want to see all the in-depth measurements that I took, I'll have a link in the description to my light comparison tool. It uses real-world measurements instead of manufacturer-provided specs. That way you can compare lights from any brand accurately. There are a few more details or quirks about these lights that I wanted to mention. The first is that you can only adjust the brightness in increments of 10%, so you essentially have 10 different levels of brightness to work with. These lights aren't insanely bright, so it's not a huge issue, and I usually only worry about that with 300 watt or brighter lights because sometimes even 10% isn't dim enough. The part of the mounting yoke that attaches to the light stand not only has a tightening knob, but another quick release button as well. It's kind of a safety feature, and that way if you don't have the knob tightened, it's not going to come off until you manually press that button. It also has a hole on the back for a safety strap or to hang something else, so I'm sure that'll come in handy. There is a cold shoe adapter on the back bottom of this light, and I don't see an immediate use for that, but I'm sure somebody will come up with something clever. The build quality on these lights is really good, with most everything being made of metal, and all the plastic and buttons on this light are really well made. I will say the knob on my daylight version is pretty tight. It's not like it's impossible to turn, but it should loosen up over time, and I just figured it was worth mentioning. The mounting yoke also has geared teeth, so you should have no issues with sagging, even with larger modifiers. Coupled with the battery that these come with, they are on the heavier side. For example, the Nanlite Forza 60 is only 1.8 pounds, although without batteries. The Godox SL60W is 3.5 pounds, and these lights are 4.5 pounds with the batteries. Size-wise, they're almost identical to the Godox SL60W. These lights can be controlled wirelessly using the Gen RC remote, although I haven't seen a listing for that, so I have no idea what it even looks like. It's listed in the specs, but it just might not be released yet, so if you're planning to pick these lights up, make sure you look into that if you need remote control. They both come with a stock reflector, and the daylight version also comes with an orange diffusion disc. The chips on both of these lights are circular, and there's a plastic protective lens that stays on the daylight version while you're using it. The bicolor version has a slightly different design with no lens over it, and I wish they'd have some kind of lens because if something flies into the light while it's on, it'll create burn marks. And if that keeps happening, you can actually ruin the light. It's not as big of a deal as I might be making it sound, but it would just be a nice safety precaution, and most people will be using these lights with a softbox or other modifier that protects the light anyways. The Nanlite Forza 60 is $289, and the Jinbei EFII is $130, although you do have to buy batteries separately. The upcoming Godox ML60 is rumored to be $269. The Genaray PortaBright Daylight is only $199, and the bicolor version is only $289, and both come with a battery. The battery grip for the Forza 60 is also an additional $49, and neither that light or the ML60 from Godox are even a native Bowens mount. That means you'll have to spend another $20 or $30 to get the Bowens mount adapter, which also hurts the portability because you just have something else to carry around. So I do really appreciate how streamlined and efficient these lights are, even given some of the downsides. The Forza 60 and Godox ML60 are much smaller, so if you plan to use these lights handheld a lot, that's definitely a consideration. So what do you think? Would you choose one of these Genaray lights over the other options, or is something about them a deal breaker for you? Leave a comment and let me know, because I reply to every single one. I'll have links to all the lights that I mentioned in the description, and they are affiliate links, but it doesn't cost you anything extra, and it really helps me create more videos like this. I post light reviews and other videos every week, so make sure you subscribe and follow me on social media, because I post a lot of stuff there that doesn't quite make it to YouTube. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.